So next we have Emily Oberman. Emily, if you don't know, is a partner at Pentagram, who's known for her brilliant work in pop culture and broadcast and motion and brand identities. And she's here today to talk about woman on the Verge.
Thank you. Hello. I have some notes that I might refer to if I forget anything. I sort of have like a bunch of things I want to say, and I'm going to try and remember to say them all. But I guess the first thing is, that's my name. I'm Emily Oberman. I am a partner at Pentagram. I do a great deal of different kinds of work. And today I wanted to talk about some work that we're doing now that's kind of coming to the forefront in all our lives, I would say, with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up and how sort of we got into that. So I've called it Woman Designer on the Verge because we're all on the verge of a new moment in culture, I would say. And I was, when we had to write this title, I was kind of on the verge of craziness with everything that was going on with Trump. So I wrote that, and then I forgot to leave it lowercase when I made the other slide. But then I also decided that this is also about strong but not so silent type. It's the way we use typography in the work that we do that is trying to get voices out there and talk about things. So there you go. Anyway, you might know me. Normally I do a lot of work in sort of entertainment industry and pop culture, and that's not specifically what I'm going to talk about today, but I realized that all the stuff that I'm showing you in the section of things I'm not going to talk about are all actually custom typefaces that we designed, and I'm not going to dive into that. And then the other stuff that I am going to talk about is all using typefaces that are already in existence, all of which are great. So one of the things that we do, I'm not going to show the Open, is we do a lot of work for Saturday Night Live. We've been doing the Open for 20-something years, we also just did the logo for the Justice League and created a custom typeface for it. I guess I like the typeface and the logo better than the movie. We also just are doing the logo for Ready Player One, which is coming out next week. And I pray to God it doesn't suck. But anyway, there are other kinds of culture besides pop. And this is something that has been bred into me my whole life. I have been taught to be subversive, to think differently, to take what I know and look at it from another angle and to speak my truth, to use an overused expression. And this even started very, very early when I was working at M & Company. I worked for Tibor Kalman at M & Company for 6 years, and we did a lot of work for Restaurant Florent that as the late 80s, the early 90s sort of evolved and things became bad with the Gulf War and President Bush the First and AIDS activism. We did a lot of work to combat that, and I just have one ad that I did at the time. Oh, that's me and Scott Stoll and Dean Lubensky and Tibor. And it's funny because I'm holding all their glasses because then I didn't wear glasses. This is an ad, and the idea was, fuck Bush, vote. Like, get him out of there. So this was an ad that ran in a magazine called Paper Magazine. And then at Number 17, which is a company that I had with my partner Bonnie Siegler for 17 years, we tried to do stuff that was also about getting our voice out there and saying what we know and using graphic design to get ideas out in the world, which is something that Milton said this morning, which I totally agree with, that to me, this isn't design about typography or design about photography. It's design about ideas and thinking, and that's what we're trying to convey, and we use whatever means necessary to do that. So, thanks. So this is me and Bonnie back then, adorably 90s. And the thing that I wanted to show you is we did a campaign for a thing called Air America Radio, which was a radio channel that was designed to be the opposite of right-wing radio and be left-wing radio. Radio, right? Am I right? And anyway, so the first poster that we did was this one, because you need radio, because George Bush the second, he didn't read, which he famously said. Kind of like our president now, but seemingly way better in hindsight. And we did a whole campaign taking his whole cabinet and all the press and like leaking the truth 24 hours a day. We pump irony, fighting the axis of Enron, the war on error. So this was also about language for us. And these posters went up all around the city and did nothing because he won. But it wasn't for lack of trying. Anyway, the other thing that has been built into me my whole life is I have a mother. I mean, we all do. But I have a mother who is a strong, opinionated feminist. She wouldn't say that word about herself, but she has always taught me that being a woman is not anything different than being a man. That you get the same, you act the same, you work the same. It's kind of like I've been thinking about that idea of feminine typography. Like the typography that I do mostly is super not feminine, but I am still a woman, and I have always felt that way. It's just who I am and the way I want to express language. But anyway, so my mother bred that into me from the beginning. In fact, I was always taught things like there were TV shows. My pop culture was curated, which is probably why I'm obsessed with it now, but it was curated when I was little. Like I wasn't allowed to watch any TV shows or any films where the woman was treated as lesser than the man. I Love Lucy was absolutely, she was like, that man is horrible to his wife and she is smarter than he, like, it was just, I also was not allowed to watch cartoons that weren't well animated, but anyway, my mother and father went to Cooper Union, where they met, and then here's my mother back then, lovely, and here she is when I was growing up, and here she is now. Anyway, my mother just, her political views, she was always outspoken, she was always very aggressively anti-organized religion, anti-right-wing, she's a good egg. Anyway, when she had graduated, after she graduated from Cooper Union, she was home taking care of her mother who was ailing, and on TV at the time was a thing called the Army McCarthy hearings, which were basically these hearings where the Army and Joseph McCarthy, Army was suing, I guess, Joseph McCarthy because Roy Cohen expressed requested preferential treatment of a guy named David Shine, and it all came on the heels of McCarthyism and the Red Scare, and it was the first sort of OJ trial. It was the first trial of the century. Everyone watched it. It was on TV all the time, and she sat at home and with a pen and a stick dipped in ink, she did these drawings from the TV of these characters. She said the evil ones were much more fun to draw than the nice ones. That's Joseph Welch, who kind of put an end to this whole thing by saying, "Have you no sense of decency, sir?" to Joseph McCarthy. And so when I became a partner at Pentagram, I was able to take those and put them out into the world. She had them in a drawer. We found them in a flat file. She was like, "Oh yeah, those meh." So we used those. At the time, they seemed really prescient for, again, everything that was going on in the news. They seem even more important now because of the idea of Red Scare and sort of the government losing its grip on what is right. Anyway, so this is a book that we did that started out with a photograph of Joseph Welch. And then we got Victor Navasky, who was the preeminent authority on Joseph McCarthy, to write an essay for us. And then we just did these beautiful pages of my mother's exceptional drawings with details. And I wrote an article about my mother called "My Mother, Mrs. Oberman," because that's how she signed all her letters to me, always. "Love, your mother, Mrs. Oberman." Anyway, I come from good stock. So that brings me to some of the work that I want to talk about today. And the first thing that I want to talk about is this thing that we have been doing lately, which is for this organization called The Wing. The Wing is a network of co-working and community spaces for women founded in Manhattan's Ladies Mile in 2016. And when the women of the Wing, Audrey Gelman and Lauren Casson, who are partners, came to us, oh, I forgot. I have all these slides because it's the Type Directors Club that tell you what typefaces we used mostly. So it's all Bianco Sans and Bianco Serif and Bureau Grotesque because they work beautifully together because they do. And then also whatever the frack else we want, because this was about sort of getting an idea out there, getting a movement, getting a lifestyle, getting a tone, getting a voice into the world. So when they first came to us, it was called Refresh because the idea came from that it's hard for women to prep for meetings in the city and you find yourself changing in Starbucks bathrooms or at the gym and there's no place for you to go and have like a quiet space to gather yourself and get your work done. And partially this was also what it was going to be called because we all thought, well, no, that's the next thing. Didn't like the name. They went away, came back and said, you know what? It's going to be called The Wing because this is more about like spreading your wings and flying or a wingman. And so, oh, sorry, I'm very confused by the slides. I will look here. The other thing was that when the Wing started, we all thought we were going to be living in this brave new world where Hillary was president. We had the first woman president, and we were all going to bask in the glory of the beauty of the power that we had. And that's not what happened, in case you didn't know. And so it became this other thing. It became this organization about women trying to take back the country, about women using their voices, about women helping each other get stronger and more powerful through a shared space. Because the truth of the matter is, right at this moment, just being a woman is a political statement. So we're trying to work through that with things like the Wing. So we went back and we looked at all sorts of things in our research for this. We looked at suffrage posters and protest posters and the style and the design of them and what they meant and who they were for and the idea of the Ladies' Mile and what a Ladies' Mile meant. But we also looked at women who are our heroes, and we're not saying no to fashion and beautiful things and funny things. We love all of that. That's all part of who we are. And language. Language and voice is a huge part of how we're going to tell our story and how we're going to be able to be heard and how thoughts are going to be able to be spread. So these were kind of the things that we looked at that sort of inspired us in terms of language. So we decided in our work on the Wing that actually the Wing is many things. It's not one thing. It's not a political space. It's not just a social space. It's many things on any given day. It contains multitudes, which is a thing we lifted from Walt Whitman, just like the women it serves. So we made a board of women that we thought sort of represented the kind of people who would be members of the Wing, even if they're fictitious or cartoons. And then we gave each of them a W for the Wing. And so we created this world of W's that they could all live in. Some are funny, some are simple, some are strange. And then we looked for one that represented the whole organization. And we focused in on it. And I'm sorry, didn't realize I don't have a slide of it alone, but it's the second from the bottom in the middle because it's strong and curvy, weird and solid. So that seemed like exactly who we are. And then we worked with them on this sort of manifesto that could be a protest poster from the suffrage age that hangs in the Wing. They are very, very good clients. They know who they are. They know what they want. They are really into story and language and history and everything, so it makes for a really terrific collaboration. And so we wrote this with them. And then we also helped them create a member package. And as we were working through this, it turned out that anything that made us laugh, that seemed right, that started out interestingly, became fodder for things that we could make. Like 1-800-HOTLINE-WING was like a joke in one of our presentations. And they were like, oh my God, that's amazing, let's just make it. And matches and playing cards that say game, recognize game, which means we're cool and we can tell that you're cool. Sort of, I guess. I shouldn't have explained that. Because now I'm so not cool. Anyway, and then all sorts of things like the Wing describes itself as not a sorority but a coven. So things like a spell book or the bag lady bag, which I get comments about all over the country. And Also, the idea of typographic puns or language like my interests include science, justice, animals, shapes, and feelings, which is a quote from Lisa Simpson. And then New York woman, and sort of owning the idea of what a woman is. So those are all protest buttons mixed in with wing buttons that we designed on that shirt, and that one just says ugh. But also the idea of girls doing whatever the fuck they want. I'm sorry, I've cursed twice now, in 2017 and now 2018, and owning who we are and being who we are. And that's whether you're a woman or someone who identifies as a woman, now is our moment. We're gonna, just like those kids who are on the cover of Time magazine this week, this is our moment to command respect. And so there's a whole line, and even though they seem like, and they're fun to make, and it's great, and we love it, they're also making a statement. They're always making a statement. It's always about like the no manicure nail file, hilarious, but also don't mess with me. My favorite thing is actually the pillbox where the wing logo is Wednesday, but it's kind of arbitrary. Anyway, we also did their website, and we also did all their social media stuff at the same time. And we wanted to create a sort of a language for them that's all of this sort of like fun and poppy stuff that allows you to say whatever you want in a way that's really friendly and great, but also get your opinion across in a really strong way. And then we also did all of these, we took all of these archival images of women and put our logos into them, also for social media. And here's what the space looks like. We've integrated the design into the space, though we did not design the space ourselves, but things like W's on the tables, the idea of personal space that's more about like knowing who you are. This is the new Soho space. This is the logo on the floor in Terrazzo. This is the Perch, which is their restaurant. Serving looks made into penny tiles in the floor. And again, it's always about sort of a wry look, a sort of knowing idea of who we are. These are their 6 phone booths at the Soho office, at the Soho location. And we picked 6 people that we loved and made old-fashioned, like, private eye signs for their doors, and they're painted on in gold leaf. And each one is for a different person that we love. My favorite is probably Ramona Quimby, that just says pest. I don't know if anybody ever read the book Ramona the Pest, so that was kind of a no-brainer. And Hermione Granger, wizard. And those things are all about, it's all about also being able to translate the world of typography and language and things that we all share around us into something that, you know, we all recognize, including this one, which is Gillian Anderson, who was at the Wing one day and saw that and then tweeted it, and we were really happy. Then there's also this, which is at the Soho space, and it's a neon sign that says No Man's Land, and it was hung up before we did this, but it's a custom piece of typography that is the masthead for a magazine, because the idea of the Wing, the idea that Audrey had, the idea that we all wanted was that the Wing becomes something, again, bigger than just a social space, but a place where we can find ourselves and learn things. So we created this magazine called No Man's Land. It's by, for, and about women or anyone who self-identifies as a woman. I mean, anyone can read it. But in fact, I encourage the rest of you, the other 49%, to read it. But anyway, it is both a fashion magazine, a feminist magazine, a goofy magazine, a serious magazine. This is the first issue. The cover model is Hari Neff, who is an actress and a transgender activist in Chanel. She's wearing Chanel. This is an article about all the research that we did. I've been sitting here like kicking myself that I didn't have slides of all the feminist magazines that we used to research this and all the things that inspired us. But here they are on one page in a little article that I wrote for the magazine about sort of the history of feminist magazines and what sort of makes like that bust cover that's so awesome. And that Spare Rib, great name for a feminist magazine. And so, and how that sort of style, that sort of eclectic, messy style is something that we were all really inspired by. And then the magazine tackles things like the world of people who make custom bras that can change your life. And then Remy Ma becoming, doing a DIY show, and this idea that women are sort of this invisible force that support people emotionally in their offices. And then our idea of fashion was taking really strong women, members of the wing, and putting them out into the world in these amazing, gorgeous suits in ways that were really casual and messy. And then we also wanted to we had this idea to have a centerfold and stickers. So here are the stickers. Note the pussy bow. And this is an article about the woman who designed these overpasses, these curvy overpasses. But here's our centerfold. Bam! A smattering of applause. Yes, weirdly. And then things like this is a restaurant guide for New York City where all the restaurants are owned by women. And here is a little flip through the whole magazine. And it's meant to feel eclectic and different and vibrant. And we're just starting the second issue right now. And it's really great. That's the wing. And then this is one where we took something that felt just wrong and tried to make it right. This woman named Jennifer Rudolph Walsh, who was at the William Morris Agency, came to me. She puts together a conference for women that's meant to empower women. It travels across the country, and it's meant to empower women to speak. The speakers are all women, and they're brought there to tell their stories. It's kind of a storytelling conference, and there's a description. Anyway, and it's for women to connect and talk about themselves and their ideas and their lives. And we decided that this meant sharp grotesque, but they thought it should look like this. And so purple and script, and this is again that idea of what is feminine, and they had been going along with this conference that looked like this. And they didn't quite understand why people weren't getting involved or excited. So we changed their identity to this. We've done a lot of woodblock type love in this room today. And we also rewrote their tagline so that everything was based around the word together. I know these all seem really obvious now, but more powerful together, we are together, better together, all together now. Together in Atlanta. And then we wrote all the copy sort of saying igniting a movement among women to create change together. Even the backstage, this was a small conference, so it's a little thing, but it's all about getting the voice out in all different ways, not always just big things, but also little things. Women, game changers making a difference, women warriors cultivating kindness together. And so the conference changed. They've sold out in all their cities. I'm not saying it's just because of the design, but I think it helped. Also because Abby Wambach was a speaker and she's really popular. And anyway, this is the way it sort of looks out in the world. Then there was this thing called the Federation. The Federation, I got a call from a woman I knew because of a project that we worked on for Sundance that was called the 4%, and it was about the idea that only 4% of the people making films in Hollywood are women today. Out of all the people making films in Hollywood, 4% are women. And so we had worked together well on that, and she called me. Oh, God, I keep forgetting I wrote these things, or helped write these things, or lifted them. Anyway, the Federation was born because of Trump and his travel ban, and the idea is that it's meant to keep cultural borders open and fight against the defunding of the arts, and it's going to do that through art. And so it's a collective of artists and arts organizations and other people coming together to show how art unites us. It is in Druck, another typeface of the revolution, and also sharp grotesque, because. Anyway, this woman named Laura Michelson, believe it or not, she and I had worked together on this other thing, and she was working with Tanya Selvartanum, I'm sorry, still can't say her name. I just call her Tanya, and Laurie Anderson, and I was like, boop, stop, wait, because back when I worked at M & Company, I worked on this album cover for Laurie Anderson with this photograph of Robert Mapplethorpe and this curl of type that I did, where I literally, set the type, cut in between every letter with an X-Acto knife and bent it into that spiral. So I was very excited about that. But the other great, amazing thing about it was there was one other woman who was also working on it, who is sitting in the front row, one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And when I realized that they were talking to both of us, I wrote to Debbie, and she said, "Let's do this together." So there she is. And so what we talked about was the idea of creating an icon that felt like one of these protest icons that could work with the artwork, that could not overwhelm it, that could go in the side of a poster or a billboard and tuck in, and fit with it, but also you would immediately know that it was a protest. So we created this symbol, and then this typography, and then this color scheme. And then this is how it's going to be used throughout. And when you create art, it can be tucked in the corner. Again, these are all organizations in their infancy. So there's not that much to show, but talk to me in a year, and there will be. But we also figured this statement out, and started creating simple swag for them, simple posters, bags. And then we designed their website, and it's, again, all based on the idea of strong typography and powerful statements. We also did all their social media stuff. So, and then here's the Federation as it begins to sort of spread out into the world also. And the next thing, also, this is about a week old, 2 weeks old. The AIGA wanted to start, I'll remember this time. The AIGA wanted to create a campaign to double the amount of women in leadership roles and work on pay and promotion issues for women in graphic design over the next 2 years. So that's terrific. We used the typeface Ultramagnetic and Franklin Gothic Condensed for it. But the first thing we did was we had a meeting and we talked about the name 2x2. It feels so graphic designy, and I don't know that that's just because of 2x4, but 2x2 just felt a little cold and a little like it was missing that, like, what's going to get us up out of our chairs kind of vibe. And so I should say that this is with Linda Decker and Heather Stern and Julie Annixter. I always say her name wrong too. And Laura Kunkel from Blue State Digital. Red State Digital. Oops. It's a whole different company. Blue State Digital. They're undoing everything we do. To do this, so we were sitting around and we had a meeting, and one of the designers on my team, Elizabeth Goodspeed, said, "Don't you think double or nothing is kind of more what we're talking about?" And we were all just like, whoa. So it's not called 2x2 anymore. It's called double or nothing. And the idea is that we won't stop. We're not going to stop. We will. It's not just a poster. It's not going to be a poster campaign. It's not going to just be a bunch of designers make posters about, getting, which is not a bad thing, but it's got to be more than that. We have to get people to actually commit to doing this. So we also used as our language the icons of money and the icons of signs, because it's a combination of money and cursing in my mind. And so, again, we're making these notebooks. But the website right now explains what this is, and you ask a question. If you think that that's correct, you are told, no, it is not, let's change that, and you can sign up. And so what this is going to be eventually is we are getting companies and corporations to commit to making this change. So, and then as companies commit to making this change, and we're going to help them find ways to do it, we are going to put their names on a website so that you know which companies are actually committing to change. And so you can look and see who's doing it and who is not. And I think that will help the whole thing take hold. And then the last thing that I'm going to show you is this this project that we've just started with Planned Parenthood. This is the first film in a series working again with with Tanya, this was made by Planned Parenthood in order to support the people fighting to take back America through protest and political voice. And so this was meant to inspire people to go to the march, to support it, the Women's March, and to be part of it. And this is, as I said, the first film in a series. And we used alternate Gothic and Avenir for it. And again, sometimes, everything else that I've talked about, I haven't really talked about the typography, but the typography is there doing its job. It's doing the heavy lifting. It works really well with organizations that are grassroots and seat of the pants because it doesn't cost as much as a photo shoot. It's easy, and it's easy to communicate language and feelings with typography. And I feel like with things like The Wing or No Man's Land or Double or Nothing, we are making typography that feels like it has a voice and a tone and a personality. And then sometimes you step back and you let the story tell itself, and you use the typography in support. So there's no flashy, blinking typography in this, but I'm nonetheless proud to have been a part of it.
Put on your face, know your place. My choice. Shut up and smile.
That's it. Everybody don't stop. These are the names of the designers who worked on all of this work with me. They are ridiculously talented and ridiculously dedicated, and I am thankful to every single one of them there. And some of them are also project managers who also work tirelessly on all of this. Thank you, everybody.